Yeah. Morning, guys. So we'll get started with this new batch. First of all, welcome to this entire fifth. For me, this is my fifth session where I'm taking CA Final completely. It's been 4 years I started teaching CA Final, and this is my fifth batch right now. Welcome to the fifth session. So before we get into the subject, I'll first share across what all topics we have and what we are going to discuss over the next 60 days and how we are going to cover it up all together is something which I'll first discuss. So in total, this is the institute material what you have. Okay. So every topic, whatever is there inside the study material will definitely get covered. Okay. All put together, you have 4 modules. All the 4 modules will get covered in the next 60 days. Only thing what I might not cover completely is there are few standards which are completely theory based in this. To the extent of theory based standards, I would definitely discuss what is inside the standard. But questions, if it is extremely important, I would definitely cover it. Otherwise, I would only cover what is relevant for us from the examination point of view. So few questions which there would not be any value addition from my side to you, I might not cover those, but I would definitely give them as a material to you for you to go through. So that's one important aspect which I wanted to clear off well in advance, so that we will have the same wavelength pass through the entire syllabus. So to start with, we will commence with module 1 only of the institute, so that we will go in the same pattern in which institute study material is there, so that you can also go back home, pick up the study material and revise for yourself once again if required. With that intention, we'll be going through in the same manner in which institute study material is actually designed. So that's number 1. Second, from classroom perspective, what is required to be brought from your side? Fairly speaking, entire theory notes, whatever is supposed to be written by you, is already typed by us. So there is no requirement for you to write down any theory notes. Every problematic topic also, we have already prepared the theory notes handy. So you will not have a requirement to write anything in the classroom. Only requirement for you is to sit and answer the solutions, like answer the problems. Just you'll have to drop down your solutions as we do in the classroom. That's the only objective with which we are doing these sessions. So that is actually the reason why I am able to crash down these sessions in 160 or 170 hours when compared to many other faculties who do it for 240, 250 hours and all. So that's the only reason why I'm able to do it that way. And of course, now during Corona, it's really difficult for people to sit across the screen and listen to it on a continuous basis throughout the sessions, which would be really difficult for everyone. That's the reason why we have ensured the theory notes is completely typed and given off to you, so that you will not have the difficulty of writing it. Okay. So with that background, let us get started with the session. Today being the first day, I'll not be taking too much of heavy sessions. I would only start with the basic intro about how Ind AS came into India and all that stuff, and then take you through a few standards, very basic standard like presentation of financial statements. Next session onwards, we will get deep into the subject. Okay, so for today, it's not going to be heavy for you. Let's just understand what's there and then take it forward. That's all. Now, having said this, I want few mandatory things to be definitely adopted by you in the classroom. Number 1, you should definitely carry black ink pen, which is your examination prescribed mode of writing. Black ink pen is mandatory. So you will be solving all your problems just like an exam environment. I don't want you to write in your own fantasies or interests. I don't want that to happen. Let us start preparing for the examination right from now itself. So my objective is your style of preparation should be classroom straight to examination. There is no concept of I'll let you, take time and again go back home and revise and all that stuff. No, if it is problematic topic, I want you to get the clarity of solving any question by yourself in the classroom itself. That's my end objective. So number one, you should definitely carry a black ink pen. Second, pencil, red ink, and any other ink color. Reason for these other things are when we go through the sessions, I'll let you know. So whenever you do a mistake, I want you to definitely use a red ink pen to highlight that this is where you are personally going wrong. So all that your notes should indicate you wherever you're going wrong. So for that reasons, I want you to carry all this, and obviously calculator. And most important thing, please do not write in white notebooks. Only ruled notebooks is what I suggest. So go ahead with only ruled notebooks. Intention is examination, they provide you the same thing. So right from day one, behave as if you are sitting in the examination hall and take it forward. That's my only objective with I'm suggesting you all this. Now, so this is what we are going to do in the next 60 days. As I told you, sessions we will start at 5:45 in the evening. Of course, first 2-3 sessions I will not drag on till 9 o'clock. Little, maybe around 7:38ish we'll finish off for the first few days. But when time progresses, let us take time, understand completely deep into the subject, and spend that 3 hours effectively, qualitative time. And also in the days to come, next future. First 1 month, I'll definitely be doing only in the evenings. Next 1 month onwards, I would be doing few sessions, 1 or 2 hours in the early morning and also in the evenings. Because idea is to not be very stringent with respect to 31st next month ending, that is 30th of September. Idea is completing all the topics within September 30th. For that, if it takes some extra sessions, I don't mind doing it also. Okay, so that's the idea. Logic behind why we wanted it to get completed by 30th September is so that if someone is planning to write for November, they would be left with one month of question to prepare. Okay, so with that objective, we are going to finish off by 30th September. That's my deadline date as to when I would like to complete this batch. Okay, so with this intro, let's get started. Now, in India, if you see the roadmap, if we observe, initial seed has fallen into the brains of ICAI long back in 2005 itself, where they took a decision that after 2000, after globalization has hit in India, every company from abroad, they have their own set of financial statements which are almost aligned with other countries, but in India we don't have that alignment at all. So with that difficulties in 2005, initially Ministry of Corporate Affairs thought they will have to come with a uniform accounting policy in line with international standards. However, that went through, and by 2009, we got ready with the green signal to start with something called as Ind AS. Now, before we go to Ind AS, you should understand that internationally there is something called as IFRS, which is already in place, International Financial Reporting Standards. By then itself, IFRS is already there. And these IFRS is what India wanted to implement. However, it felt due to the commercial economic conditions in India, it would not be appropriate to bring in IFRS as it is in India. Hence, what they've done is, they thought they'll not adopt IFRS as it is, but they will only converge to IFRS. Now, what does converging mean? Converging means not adopting IFRS as it is, but I will ensure that your base principles of IFRS will be there here also. But here and there, I'll make my own corrections such that it fits into my economic environment. Hence, it's IFRS. It's basically IFRS, but tailor-made. Tailor-made to Indian requirement. That is what we initially started off with. Now, so that is how they decided in India that they would not adopt IFRS as it is, but will converge to IFRS. Now, is that a scenario only in India? Are there other countries also which have adopted a similar line of accounting standards? Yes, there are other countries as well. Japan, if you see, Japan has got its own style of standards, but still that is converged only. Singapore has got its own style of accounting standards, but they resemble to be IFRS. Hong Kong, similar way. So like this, there are few Asian countries and there are few European countries who have their own set of financial reporting standards, but which are almost in line with IFRS. And there are few countries which felt we would adopt IFRS as it is. We do not want to deviate from it at all. Best example for IFRS as it is, you can take the entire Gulf region. Any Arab country nowadays, if you see, they are completely IFRS dependent only. They don't have their own set of accounting standards at all. Okay, so that's how various countries adopted either to choose IFRS itself, or they prepared their own accounting standards which are in line with IFRS. Now, in India, if you see, though we decided to bring in Ind AS by 2009, we prepared the documentation ready and all the standards ready by 2010 itself. By 2010, all the documents are ready. Green signal is alone supposed to be given by both houses of parliament. At that point, I should not bring in such political views, but still I'll just tell you, since this is a very close meeting happening. In 2010, when it is put across both the houses of parliament to give a green signal as to whether these standards can be adopted or not, there is only one place where a standard has to be approved by CBDT. CBDT has to approve with respect to taxes, a standard on taxes. This particular standard alone, though they have brought it across in 2010, across CBDT, stating that, boss, this is the new standard which you have written. If you approve, we'll get through this in the entire regime. If you approve, we'll go through ahead. But CBDT took almost 4 years for a green signal to be given. Okay. So no wonder our income tax site is taking that long right now. But this is something which has been happening with CBDT for quite some time, is what I'm trying to convey here. So that standard, in fact, is about deferred tax calculation. Deferred taxes calculation, where the existing AS22 adopts something called as a P&L approach, which is a very narrow approach. But in Ind AS, there's something called as a balance sheet approach, which is a broader approach. And it is very clear that this would increase or literally broaden the ambit of deferred taxation. But still, for them to understand that 4 or 5 pages of detailing, they have taken 4 years. And finally, in 2014, the green signal has been waived off. The green flag is waved off. And then in 2014, they have stated Ind AS is brought in. For implementation, they have taken 1st of April 2015 as the start point. For implementation, they have taken 1st of April 2015 as the start point. And they have stated that for financial year 2015-16, if someone would like to adopt Ind AS, they can voluntarily adopt. They can voluntarily adopt. And that is something which was done very smoothly. Believe me or not, out of all the implementations which have happened in the last decade, Ind AS implementation is the smoothest implementation which has ever happened. No technical fleas, no technical flaws, nothing. Unlike GST or any other law which we have brought in, Ind AS was so smoothly done, no issues at all. Okay. So in 2015-16, that was voluntary. And then 16-17 onwards, there are various rules for each of the kind of company to implement Ind AS in itself. Okay. Okay. So from 16-17 onwards, we are through. By 17-18, all listed companies are mandated. All listed companies are mandated to definitely adopt Ind AS. However, there are restrictions with respect to NBFCs and all. NBFCs and banking companies, they are not required to adopt Ind AS at that point of time. However, at a later stage, NBFCs are also through now. NBFCs are also through. And hopefully by next year or so, banks also will converge into Ind AS. In which case, your accounting, whatever is happening in banking companies right now with respect to provisioning norms or the so-called 100% write-off of provision creations, all that will completely vanish. A new way of provisioning will come into picture, which we will discuss at a later stage when we do financial instruments. Then we will understand it better. But for now, understand that banks are yet to enter into Ind AS regime. If they enter into Ind AS regime, the impact of Ind AS is going to be very huge. Impact of Ind AS is going to be very huge. That's the reason why they are trying to hold on for some time. First, let the banking system stabilize in India and then let that happen is what they are right now holding for. Now, so this is where we stand right now. I'm not taking you through every detail as to which company, how it is supposed to be done and all for now. I'm only giving you an overview. Okay. So right now, if you see every listed company is mandated to adopt Ind AS. Other than listed companies, if net worth is greater than 250 crores, Ind AS is mandated right now in India. Okay. You may say, sir, earlier there was 500 in between, then 250 came and all. I know all those are at that point of time relevant for examination also. Today, nothing is relevant. Okay. If a company has got a net worth of more than 250 crores right now, Ind AS is applicable. Okay. In fact, during that 2015 to 2019 period, that was the biggest, busiest season for us in implementation of Ind AS for various listed entities and unlisted large entities. Okay. So what does this convey? It conveys that India currently has got two sets of accounting standards. One is Ind AS, second is IGAAP. What is IGAAP? The old standards what we have. Right now, we have both the sets of standards. Out of that, Ind AS is something which is applicable for large entities. What do you mean by large? Someone who has got greater than 250 crores of net worth. I call them large. If they have got less than 250 crores of net worth, right now not required, but if you are interested, you can voluntarily adopt Ind AS. Okay. However, nobody does that job. Okay. Fine, Neha. Yeah. So that's what we are going to do, what we have right now in India. Now, moving ahead, why is this dancing? All right. Moving ahead. So right now in CA final, if you see, the entire syllabus is only Ind AS for you. Only Ind AS for you. And in fact, there are few drawbacks in CA final with this new syllabus. I'll tell you what. There are few A's which you miss out, which are not learned by you in your erstwhile, CA intermediate. Because if you have come through your old CA intermediate course, that is IPCC, you do not have few things covered in that particular place. And in CA final, you will not even learn those because you are only going to go through Ind AS completely. So that difficulty is something there. Only Ind AS is what you're going to see in CA final. So right now in CA final, what you have is only Ind AS. Hence, all standards in existence in India right now are all there part of your syllabus. Every standard which is there in India is applicable to you. Okay. If there are any changes to it, automatically your syllabus also gets changed. But for this, nothing else is there. And apart from that, apart from the few A's what you miss out, there is one more beautiful subject called as valuation, which was part of erstwhile old CA final syllabus, which is completely removed off now. Reason for removing that off is logically good, but from a learning point of view, it's not good for you. Logically, it's correct because your existing syllabus is too vast. It would not be practically possible to cover everything in 100 marks of paper, even if valuation is included. Even without valuation getting included, there is a very large paper. But if valuation also gets included, the syllabus goes crazy. So that's the reason valuation has been removed from your syllabus. Of course, a part of valuation is already introduced in SFM. Still, the qualitative characteristics, all the valuation models are not something which are covered in SFM. Only startup valuations and few concepts are only covered there. Others are not given there at all for you for now. Okay. So there are few drawbacks also. What I'm trying to convey is after CA final, there are few things which you should definitely learn for yourself. Okay. So that's equally important for you from your career perspective or practice perspective, whatever way you choose post your qualification. Okay. So this is the background as to what you have in Ind AS, how Ind AS came out and all that stuff. Now we will start with the first standard. Okay. So let's get ahead with a very simple basic standard called presentation of financial statements. Ind AS 1. Okay. Fairly speaking, this standard is something similar to what you have learned in AS1 as well. AS1 as well. However, there are few things which you will have to learn for yourself, which are different from AS and which is there only in Ind AS. Okay. First thing, there are few items which are part of your financial statements. What all together are considered as financial statements is something you should understand. Number one, your balance sheet. Number two, P&L. Number three, notes to accounts. Number four, most important thing, statement of changes in equity. Number five, your cash flow statement. Okay. Broadly, this is what we call as financial statements. Now, how do we present them? How do we present them? Standard says these are supposed to be given, number one, for the current year, that is the financial year for which we are presenting. Apart from that, we also have to give a comparable financial statements for previous year, the year for which we are actually doing it. Okay. So this is what we call as a financial statement set. I'll have to give balance sheet for the current year, along with which the previous comparison is also required to be given. P&L current year along with previous year. Notes to accounts current year with previous year. Most important thing, something which is important from Ind AS perspective, is statement of changes in equity. Okay. Of course, this exists in AS as well now, but still it's got some importance in Ind AS. That is also required to be prepared for the current period with the previous period and cash flow statement. So all these put together is what we call as a separate set of financial statements. Now, what is that we need to look at when we present for financial statements? Number one, true and fair view. Number two, going concern has to be satisfied. Number three, accrual base of accounting should get satisfied. Number four, materiality and aggregation. Okay. Number five, offsetting. Offsetting has to be seen. Number six, consistency. Okay. Number seven, your reporting frequency. And lastly, comparable information. Now, if we understand these 8 parts, the standard is actually over. Okay. What are these about? The first one, true and fair view should be satisfied. What does that mean? It means that whatever the financial statements we are preparing, those should be true and fair, and it should not mislead the users of financial statements, that is the stakeholders. That is something which is there even in our AS. Your financial statements, what you prepare should be true and fair, clean. Next, going concern, most important thing. Whenever we prepare financial statements, those should be prepared with a context that my entity is going to be a going concern for the next few years, or for the foreseeing future. Only then I go with going concern assumption. And only because I go with the going concern assumption, I would prepare my financial statements using fair values and historical costs in few cases. If I don't have this so-called assumption of going concern, I will have to prepare my financial statements not at fair values and historical costs. I will have to go with only realizable values or settlement values of liabilities. Only because I have going concern as an assumption, I would state that, look, my balance sheet has got so much of assets. The fair value of the assets is XYZ. And I have so many amount of liabilities. And this is what I'll have to repay. If that does not exist, the picturization of balance sheet itself will be different. I would not go with the existing style of preparation at all. Okay. So that's what going concern is all about. In fact, last 1 year, if you see, in reality, there are many companies which had to give a note to the auditors stating that this year is really bad for us, but still we have XYZ reasons to prove that our company will be a going concern in future. Best example, Nissan. Last year, their sales were horrible. They had to give a note to their auditor stating that, I know we are in a very bad shape due to Corona, but doesn't mean we are not going to continue here at all. We still have good business prospects here, and we are sure we'll be able to fight back. Is what they were able to forecast and state with the auditor stating that, we know currently we are in a bad shape, but doesn't mean we'll shut down the business and go away. So we'll continue to assume that we are going concern only. That assumption was supposed to be, it was forced by the company to be given. Okay. So that is something which you'll have to look at. Next, accrual concept. I'm sure you all know, I need not explain what it is. Materiality and aggregation. What does materiality and aggregation mean? Materiality indicates if any item is of a material nature, the standard requires it to be presented separately in the notes to accounts at least. However, if the item is of not a material in nature, in such case, all such immaterial items can be aggregated together and shown as one expense. That is what allowed inside the standard. Say, for example, for a company doing 100 crores of turnover, if I come out and say that I would, I would show separate line item for 10 rupees of expense, 50 rupees of expense and all. That looks funny. Instead, you can club all of those and tell that, boss, all put together is XYZ miscellaneous expenses. There is no wrong in it. Okay. So that material and aggregation is something given as a freedom in the hands of preparers of financial statements rather than standard setting up some rules for that. Next, most important thing in Ind AS is offsetting. What does offsetting mean? What does offsetting mean? Offsetting means, can I knock off few assets against some liabilities and show net in the balance sheet? Or can I knock off some incomes against some expenses and show net as my revenue in my P&L? Like that, there are multiple questions which come into the minds of preparers of financial statements. What standard says is, offsetting is allowed only if it is of like transactions. Say, for example, I would give you a practical example. Take Nissan only. Nissan is a manufacturer of cars, and they've got their own manufacturing unit in Chennai itself. This particular factory generally sends goods, that is cars, to across India and also other countries. Okay. Now, for Nissan, each sale being sold is a revenue item. Hence, they would be maintaining separate records with respect to number of cars produced, number of cars which are finished, number of cars which are sent to the distributor's place, number of cars which are actually sold by distributors. Every detail will be with Nissan only. Okay. Now, the question what comes to us is, should I consider revenue from cars as the sale price of revenue of car, say, which is 10 lakhs, or should I consider the distributor price of 9 lakhs? After deducting that, should I take only 1 lakh as my revenue? Standard says this is a case where you are manufacturing your own product, in which case recognize sale only for 10 lakhs, but not 1 lakh. Netting off is not allowed here. There are some other instances where netting off is allowed. I'll tell you that also. There are instances where I do not know why it's dancing. There are some other instances where the revenue is supposed to be net off and shown. I'll give you an example. Same Nissan sitting in India, okay, has identified business in Bhutan. But Bhutan said, I don't want the cars which are manufactured in India to be sent to Bhutan. He said, see, I know that you are part of Nissan only, Nissan Japan only, but I don't want you to deliver cars from India. I want all the cars to come only from Japan. Okay. Now, Nissan India is a separate entity. Nissan Japan is a separate manufacturing entity. However, Nissan India is a subsidiary of Nissan Japan only. Now, what would Nissan India do? He would tell Japan stating that, look, I have got an order. I've got an order. I want you to supply the goods directly to Bhutan. That should not come into my control at all. All I will do is, if I'm ordering 100 vehicles, you will raise an invoice on me. You will raise an invoice on me at 90% of the value of sale value. I will raise on Bhutan 100% of the invoice value. Say, for example, each vehicle is 10 lakhs. So my transaction value is 1,000 lakhs. Out of this 1,000 lakhs, Japan Nissan will raise invoice on me for 900 lakhs. And Nissan India will raise invoice to Bhutan for 1,000 lakhs. Look at the transaction carefully. Nissan India is not receiving goods from Japan at all. He is only doing a mediation business where I am not really purchasing the stock and delivering it to somebody. Okay. If I am a regular retailer, or else if I am a regular distributor of cars, I would really purchase the stock from the manufacturer. I would hold it with me. I would receive the goods and there is a GRN which comes with it. The goods are not even entering into India's border. I am not paying any customs. This is a overseas sale. This is an overseas sale. There is no India's involvement in this at all. But for the reason that they don't have a port in Bhutan, that's why they come to Calcutta, pick the vehicles from there and go. That's all. However, India, I am not taking control over the goods at all. Okay. In which case, here, I cannot tell that my revenue is 1,000 crores and my expense is 900 crores. What standard says is here you are allowed to take a knockoff. Here you are allowed to take a knockoff. That is, you can net off and tell that your revenue is only 100 crores. That's fine. However, in the first case where you are only manufacturing and you are only supplying goods to some other person, you cannot tell that you are, net amount of revenue is only your revenue. No. But in the second case, yes, you are supposed to do. You are allowed to do that. Am I making sense? Are you guys able to follow someone online? Guys, Dinesh, Lakshmi, Priyanka, Naga Venkata, Swapna, Rajlakshmi. You can unmute and talk also. Yes, thank you. Cool.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the background as to why this netting off concept is so important for us. Okay. Now, apart from netting off, there are other aspects also which are important for us. I seriously don't know why it's behaving like this today. All right. Okay. So this is with respect to offsetting. Did my video go off, guys?
Yes, sir. We are not able to see a video.
Okay, okay, one sec. So apart from offsetting, consistency is something which we generally know, like, every accounting policy, what we choose should be consistently adopted. And then with respect to reporting frequency, in India right now, every reporting is done only once in a year. The financial statements are prepared only once in a year. However, with respect to SEBI listed entities, there is a requirement that they'll have to prepare, interim financial reporting to be done. That alone would be done every quarter wise. So that's something we'll be discussing separately. And apart from that, we also have comparable information which we will have to look through. Okay. Now, coming to this comparable information, how do we present that? How do we do that is something which we'll have to understand. I'll first take you through what is comparable information and then we will discuss about it. Comparable info. Standard actually requires you to give for every financial statement what we prepare. For every financial statement what we prepare, along with particulars, say we are preparing it for the financial year 2021 and 22. That is 31st March 22. The comparables are supposed to be given as on 31st March 21. Okay, that means for 2020-21 also, we are supposed to prepare the financial statements. This gives a ease for the users of financial statement that this is what was there last year and this is what is there in the current year. Hence, they would decide whether it is a good thing or a bad thing or an ugly thing. That's what generally happens when we give a presentation through comparables. Now, there could be instances where I'll talk about Ind AS now. There could be instances where I will have to adopt Ind AS. I'll have to adopt Ind AS for the financial year 2022-23. I'm just giving you an information, okay? There would be instances where I'll have to adopt Ind AS for the financial year 2022-23. Why will I be forced to prepare Ind AS financials? Only because in the previous financial year, if my net worth is greater than 250 crores, I'm forced to adopt Ind AS in this current year. Okay. Now, that means in the financial year 2021-22, my net worth has crossed 250 crores. That is why I am forced to adopt Ind AS in the current financial year. That means for 2022-23, the first column here, it would be 22-23. Okay. This would be in Ind AS. This would be in Ind AS. And if I give a comparable number here under AS or IGAP, are they comparable? No. Which means if I have to prepare financial statements using Ind AS for the current year, I should also prepare my comparable numbers under Ind AS for the last year also. So automatically for the previous year also, I will have to do financial statements under Ind AS for 21-22. Now, if Ind AS has to be adopted for 21-22 also, on which date should I make all the adjustments, sir? Is the question which you will get. What standard says is, if you are supposed to prepare Ind AS financials, comparable Ind AS financials for 21-22, standard says your current financial year is 22-23. Comparable financial year is 21-22. The day when you should implement Ind AS, implementation date is going to be 1st of April 2021. Why is that so? What standard says is, any Ind AS implementation, you will have to go back in time. You will have to go back in time and make all adjustments at the beginning day of the comparable period. So for me, this is the beginning date of comparable period. Okay. Hence, As on 1st April 2021, I should first bring in all the changes. Thereafter, adopt whatever is there in Ind AS for the last year fully. Prepare your P&L balance sheet as per Ind AS and give it for comparison in the current year. Anyways, current year's financials will be done using the comparison, using the Ind AS only. Okay. So always remember that if at all Ind AS is supposed to be implemented, and if he says it is applicable from the financial year 22-23, the implementation date would be 1st of April 21. You should go back by 1 year. Okay. Now, if at all such circumstances happen, what standard says is, if you are implementing Ind AS for the first time, it is not just the 2 columns which are supposed to be presented for readers of financial statement. You should also prepare the 3rd column. What is the 3rd column? It's going to be for 22-23 current year you are preparing. Comparable information is 21-22. You should also prepare the implementation impact. As on 1st April 21 also you are supposed to give. This is the presentation expected when you are implementing for the first time. Next year onwards, should I give 3 details, sir? No, not required. Only 2 details from the next year. But for the first implementation event, you should give 3 columns. And in fact, this 3rd column has got a lot of relevance in later stages also. We will discuss when we go to that particular standards. This 3rd column also will be required in other aspects also, but I'll discuss when the situation comes there. Okay. For now, understand that whenever Ind AS is being applied for the very first time, you'll have to prepare the financial statements for 3 columns. 1, the current financial year, that is the financial period for which you are preparing your balance sheet P&L. 2nd, previous year, that is as on the balance sheet date. 3rd, the beginning day of the comparable period. 3 columns are supposed to be maintained. Okay. So this is what's expected from financial statements presentation point of view. Now, apart from this, there are a few important aspects to be understood. Okay. Number 1, what does other comprehensive income mean? What does other comprehensive income mean? First thing, you need to understand that the profit and loss statement under Ind AS is slightly different from what you learned in AS. Other comprehensive income is actually a part of your statement of P&L. All regular operating profits or losses or incomes or expenses generally go to the regular P&L. Okay. However, something which is not part of my operations, but I will have to show that as a gain or loss, but I don't want to show it as part of my P&L, is what I bring under other comprehensive income. What kind of transactions will hit other comprehensive income? Number 1, say I have a fair value change. Fair value changes. What is a fair value change? Fair value changes are something in the last balance sheet, there could be some other value, but this year the fair value of particular asset has increased or decreased. such increases and decreases I would like to recognize. Why should I recognize? Reason is Ind AS balance sheet, Ind AS expects you to provide only using fair values. See, the difference, major difference between Ind AS and AS, if you observe, AS is completely dependent on historical cost. Whatever you have initially recognized, with that only you will continue throughout your life. But Ind AS is not like that. It wants everything to be realistic. When I see the balance sheet, it should talk about today's value in it. If it cannot talk about today's value, there is no point presenting a balance sheet. Hence, fair valuation is the most important aspect under Ind AS. Any such fair valuation changes which are not part of operating activities, I would like to showcase it as part of OCI, other comprehensive income. This is also called as SOCI, Statement of Other Comprehensive Income. Okay, OCI or SOCI, whatever name you give it. Another example, revaluation. Of fixed assets. Okay, what is revaluation of fixed assets? When I revalue a fixed asset, it could be upward revaluation or a downward revaluation. Okay, if there is an upward revaluation, that's actually a profit for me. But is that really out of my operations? No. My asset is like that only in my balance sheet, but there is a value inflation. I'm inflating the value of the asset, that's all. But did that value really come to me? No, it's not going to P&L at all, in which case I would suggest you to take it to OCI. So like this, there are multiple aspects where OCI is supposed to be used. When we go to that particular standards, we will discuss about this in detail. Okay, what kind of item goes to OCI and all. There are very limited number of transactions which generally hit OCI. Okay, so in all such cases, we would take the profits only to OCI rather than taking it to P&L. Okay, so that's what other comprehensive income part of P&L is about. Okay, now I will take you through the material where it has got so this material I've shared with you guys. You can go through that. So whatever we have discussed till now is in this, and it also contains all the institute material theory questions. As I told you, all easy topics. I'll not discuss the theory questions. You can go through for yourself. Okay. So the formats in which we are supposed to prepare balance sheet and P&L is something given in this. You can go through that. So balance sheet, if you see under Ind AS, the balance sheet does not start with liabilities first. It starts with assets. Okay. So assets, first of all, non-current assets. Out of that, property, plant and equipment comes first. Okay, and then capital work in progress, if any, investment properties. I'll slightly increase the font size so that it will be more visible to you. Okay, and then goodwill, other intangibles under development, biological assets other than bearer plants. Okay, so financial assets, investments, trade receivables, loans, others. If there is anything that would be taken up here. So this is the format in which we prepare non-current assets, and then you have deferred tax assets net off. If at all, if it is a deferred tax asset, it comes here. If it is deferred tax liability, it goes to liability side. Okay, and then you have other non-current assets. This two is supposed to be here. Current assets, if you see, inventories, financial assets, investments, trade receivables, cash and cash equivalents, bank, okay, and then loans given, and others if you have anything, current tax asset if you have anything, and other current assets. So this is how your asset side of the balance sheet would be. And the same time, liabilities, if you see, equity share capital is the only equity share capital. Now here there is a most important thing. The definition of equity under Ind AS means a residual interest in the company. For that reason, if there are any redeemable preference shares in the company, such redeemable preference shares are not considered as part of share capital at all. Preference share capitals, especially completely redeemable, are only considered as liabilities, but are not at all considered as equity in Ind AS. Okay, so that's one very important aspect. And other equity indicates all reserves and surplus put together. Okay, in fact, SOCI also forms part of other equity only. Okay, and liabilities, non-current liabilities, financial liabilities if there are any, and then borrowings, trade payables, total outstanding dues, dues of small enterprise and micro enterprise. So MSMEs, okay, separately you are supposed to show, and then creditors other than MSMEs, and then other financial liabilities, provisions, whatever non-current provisions are there, that would come here, and then deferred tax liabilities, other non-current liabilities total, and then comes current liabilities. So again, current liabilities, you have a list of all the items. Okay, so this is how your balance sheet looks like under Ind AS. Okay, same way, let us go through P&L as well. Yeah. So revenue from operations, and then if there are any other incomes that would be taken, net gains on derecognition of financial assets at amortized cost. So if at all you derecognize any financial assets, that also comes here. And reclassification of financial assets, if there is something, that also comes here. And all put together is your income. And expenses, cost of material consumed, this you are supposed to ignore. This is as per institute material. Okay, before GST this was. So purchase of stock in trade, and then goods in inventory, changes in inventory, finished goods, and then stock in trade, work in progress, everything. Okay, so employee benefits, finance cost, depreciation, impairment losses if any, net loss on derecognition, and all these details. So finally what you get is profit before exceptional items, and then you take exceptional items, and then profit after before taxes, and then current tax, deferred tax, profit for the period from continuing operations, profit or loss from discontinuing operations, tax expense on discontinued operations. So this is the general format what you have. I'm just taking you through because next session onwards we will be going through the same format. That's why. Okay. And with this part, number 15, Roman number 15, your regular P&L is over. Then comes other comprehensive income. Okay. So items that will not be classified to P&L account is what I'm bringing here. Income tax relating to items which will not be reclassified to P&L account. So that means deferred taxes effects, all that comes here. Items that will be reclassified to P&L. So from OCI, if they are getting reclassified to P&L, that also I should show here. Okay. And income tax relating to items that will be reclassified to P&L. So that is what we show here. And finally, what you get is total comprehensive income for the period. Okay. And finally, what you get is earnings per share. Okay. One for continued operations, second is for discontinued operations. And for both continued and discontinued together, what is it? So this is the format in which you prepare financial statements for Ind AS entities. Okay. Now, there are few aspects as to which we will have to discuss here. Number one, what is an operating cycle? Yeah. What is an operating cycle? Fairly speaking, under Ind AS, there is no hard and fast rule at all for operating cycle to be defined. What standard says is operating cycle is basically the time what it takes for the money invested in the business to again get converted into money. That's the simple logic. So how does my money flow? I initially bring in money, purchase some raw material, and that goes on into work in progress, and again finished product that should get sold, and then only again cash comes in. That's the cycle in which I generally operate. And what is the time it takes for that entire cycle to happen is what I generally consider as operating cycle. However, if that is not definable by you, in such case, standard allows you to take 12 months. If it is definable by you, go with your own definition of operating cycle. Okay. So that's what standard suggests you to do. Okay. So operating cycle, if you see, it is the time between the acquisition of asset for processing and their realization in cash or cash equivalents. That is the time between the date of purchase of raw material, collection from customers. Okay. An operating cycle can be more than 12 months also. There's no hard and fast rule that it should definitely be 12 months. If it is 18 months, no problem. If you can substantiate why it is 18 months, you're good to do. Okay. So that's what we have to observe in Ind AS. Now, last but not the least, there are few carve-ins and carve-outs. Now, first of all, I should make you understand what is a carve-in and what is a carve-out. We'll have to discuss about that. A carve-in indicates something which is not there in IFRS, but which is there in Ind AS. Then you call it as carve-in. I created in Ind AS. Carve-out means something which is part of IFRS, but I felt it is not fit into Indian economy. That's why I have removed it off. Then I call it as carve-out. So here we are talking about a carve-out where something is part of IFRS, but I felt it is not relevant in India. Or I felt it is not appropriate to treat like that. Hence, I have removed that out of my, the standard. Okay. So what is that about? Where there are a breach of material provisions of long-term contract, long-term loan arrangements on or before the end of reporting period, with the effect that liability becomes payable on demand on the reporting date. The entity classifies the liability as current, even if the lender agrees not to or cannot after the reporting period and before the approval of the financial statements for issue demand payment as a consequence of the breach. Now, what is he talking about? IFRS says, if I have a loan liability with me, as on the balance sheet date, I have a loan liability. And I am not in a position to pay back that liability at all. Say I have defaulted for 6 months continuously. And the lender is very forcefully pushing me to pay the monies, but I don't have money. Even if he puts across all the legal suits also, I will not be able to pay. Nothing comes out of my pocket. Okay. Now, what standard says under IFRS is the moment it is, it is supposed to be paid by you. It is supposed to be paid by you. And the lender is pushing me to pay the full amounts today itself. Till now, the liability is sitting as part of non-current liabilities. Today, just because the lender is seriously pushing me to pay the monies, I will have to convert it into current liabilities under IFRS. Okay, I might not be in a position to pay. I know that in the next 12 months, I will not be able to pay also. Everything is known. Even if he sends a legal notice, I'll not be able to pay. Nothing is possible in the next 12 months for me to pay. Even though you know you will not be able to pay in the next 12 months, you should classify it as current liability under IFRS. But in India, we have not agreed for that. India, we are going to consider it only as non-current liability only. We will not adjust for it in India. Under IGAAP, there is no requirement for such conversion. Okay, so reclassification of assets and liabilities is what this is about. Generally, if there is a non-current liability and which is going to be paid in the next 12 months, we generally reclassify from non-current to current. That is something which we do in every company. Yes or no? Even in your audits also, you would have observed that. If there is a non-current liability, say there is a bank loan or a financial institution, next 12 months, whatever is supposed to be paid, that we will reduce the amount there and add it to current liability. We will state it as current liability in the financial statements, so that your non-current liability will be different and current liability would be different. Such classification is generally done only to the extent of monies what we know we will pay in next 12 months. That's all. Beyond that, we would not do. But here, IFRS says not just for the amounts what you pay. If the lender is pushing you hard to pay in the next 12 months, though you have no intentions to pay also, you should classify it as current is what IFRS says, which Ind AS has denied. Ind AS says, no, we are not going to implement that in India. Okay, that is what this carve out is about. Okay, so broadly, I have covered the entire standard wherever it is important. Other bits and pieces which I have not covered, you can go through for yourself, and it is easily understandable. Okay, so you can go through that. So questions is up to you for this particular standard alone. I've shared this material, and also one more material is also shared with you. Okay, you can go through those two and have a reading for yourself. Okay, so first day, let us stop here. Beyond this, too much would not be good. Okay, so slowly we'll increase the class timings and take it across till 9 o'clock in a weekdays. Okay, so one important aspect for you here is, statement of changes in equity. Okay, so the statement of changes in equity is very, very important to be prepared for every company. What is the amount of equity share capital at the beginning of the period? How much of change happened? That means, is there any addition or deletion, reduction during the period, and balance at the end of the period? So for every item of equity and other equity, you are supposed to prepare this. Okay, so if you have any compulsory convertible preference shares, such compulsory convertible preference shares are considered to be part of equity only, because today it might not be convertible, but in future you know that it is convertible, in which case you consider it to be part of equity only. Okay, and so all such convertibles are also supposed to be given here. Okay, so with this we will stop here. We'll take it forward in tomorrow's session. Okay, thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you, sir.